The ship was dying. Park knew this because he could feel it in the way the metal screamed around him, in the way the lights flickered like candles in a storm, and in the way Captain's voice had gone from calm to desperate in the span of 30 seconds. All hands brace for impact. This is not a drill. Brace for impact. Pulled his safety straps across his chest and looked at the viewport. Through the cracked glass, he could see a planet rushing toward them, purple and green and beautiful in a way that Earth never was. Prime. They were supposed to land there in peace, as guests, as diplomats. Instead, they were falling out of the sky like a burning rock. It had all gone wrong so fast. One moment they were cruising through the asteroid belt, the next moment 3 pirate ships had appeared from nowhere. The horizon's edge was a diplomatic vessel, not a warship. It had shields meant for space debris, not plasma cannons. The first hit had taken out their main engine. The second had killed the navigation system. The third had set half the ship on fire. Now they were crashing, and could do nothing but hold on and pray. The young lieutenant was 28 years old. He had joined the Space Corps because he wanted to see the stars, not because he wanted to fight. His job on this mission was simple. He was part of the security team, meant to stand around and look professional while the real diplomats talked to the... He had trained for many things, but he had not trained for this. The ship hit the atmosphere and began to shake so hard that its teeth rattled in his skull. He could hear someone screaming in the next compartment. He could smell smoke and burning plastic. He could taste blood where he had bitten his tongue. And then they hit the ground. The impact was like nothing had ever felt. It was as if a giant had grabbed the ship and slammed it down with all his strength. His head snapped forward, then back. His vision went white, then black, then white again. He heard metal tearing, glass breaking, people crying out in pain and fear. The ship slid across the ground for what felt like forever. Could see through the viewport as they carved a path through purple trees and strange plants, sending up clouds of dirt and debris. They were heading toward a settlement. He could see buildings ahead, running in panic, trying to get out of the way. Finally, mercifully, the ship stopped. For a long moment just sat there, breathing hard, trying to understand that he was still alive. His whole body hurt. His shoulder was screaming with pain. Something had hit him during the crash, maybe a piece of the ceiling. But he was alive. "Report," Captain's voice came through the intercom, weak and crackling. "All sections, report." Looked around. He was in the secondary cargo bay, along with 2 other crew members. One of them, a young woman named Han, was unconscious but breathing. The other, an engineer named, was awake but dazed, blood running down the side of his face. "Cargo Bay 2, said into his communicator. 2 injured, 1 mobile. What's our situation, Captain?" There was a pause. Then's voice came back, and felt his blood go cold at the words. "The pirates followed us down. They're landing outside the settlement. I think they're going to raid it." His mind raced. They were a peaceful people. They had not seen war in over 100 years. They had police, but no army. They had never needed one. And now a band of space pirates was about to attack their civilians, and the only armed humans on the planet were trapped in a crashed ship. He unbuckled his straps and stood up, ignoring the pain that shot through his body. His sidearm was still on his hip, a small Mercy. It was a standard-issue weapon, meant for self-defense, not for fighting armored raiders, but it was something. "Stay with," he said. "I'm going outside." The engineer stared at him. "Outside? We should stay here, wait for rescue. They will handle their own." "They don't know how to fight," said, "and those pirates will kill anyone who gets in their way." He didn't wait for a response. He found an emergency exit that still worked and forced it open, stepping out into the alien air of Prime. The first thing he noticed was the smell, sweet and strange, like flowers he had never seen. The second thing he noticed was the chaos. The settlement was on fire. Not all of it, but enough. He could see running in every direction, their silver skin flashing in the light of the flames. They were tall, taller than humans, with large eyes that seemed to glow with inner light. They moved with grace even in their panic, but there was no hiding their fear. And he could see the pirates. There were maybe a dozen of them, spreading out through the marketplace like wolves among sheep. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons that made Sidearm look like a toy. They were shouting orders to each other, grabbing valuables, pushing to the ground. Knew he should find cover. He knew he should wait for backup. He knew that one human with a small gun could not stop a dozen armored raiders. But then he heard it. A cry high and thin and full of terror, a child's cry. He turned toward the sound and saw her. A small, maybe 5 or 6 years old in human terms. She was trapped under a market stall that had collapsed, probably knocked over in the panic. Her silver face was covered in dust and tears, and her small hands were pushing uselessly at the wood that pinned her down. And 3 raiders were walking toward her. Did not think. He did not calculate the odds. He did not consider the diplomatic consequences or the danger to himself. He simply moved. He ran across the burning marketplace, jumping over debris, pushing past, fleeing. The raiders saw him coming. They actually stopped and stared as if they could not believe what they were seeing. A lone human running toward them instead of away. "Hey," shouted, raising his weapon, "over here." The first raider laughed. It was an ugly sound made worse by the mechanical distortion of his helmet. "A human, all the way out here. Do you know how much your kind sells for on the black market?" Did not answer. He was looking at the raider's armor, searching for weak points. There, the knee joint, less protected than the rest. He fired 3 shots in quick succession. The raider went down with a scream of surprise and pain. The other 2 opened fire immediately. Dove to the side, feeling the heat of energy bolts pass inches from his face. He rolled behind a stone fountain, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. He had maybe 10 seconds before they flanked him, maybe less. But the child was still there, still trapped, still crying. He could see her through a gap in the fountain, her large eyes fixed on him with desperate hope. She did not know who he was or where he came from. She only knew that he was trying to help her. And in that moment, for Park, that was enough. He took a deep breath, whispered a prayer to whatever gods might be listening, and ran for the child. The distance between the fountain and the trapped child was maybe 20 meters. It might as well have been 20 kilometers. Ran with everything he had, his legs pumping, his lungs burning, his mind focused on one thing and one thing only: reach the girl. Energy bolts flew past him. One hit the ground at his feet, sending up a spray of dirt and stone. Another passed so close to his ear that he could feel the heat of it. The raiders were shouting now, angry that their easy target was not being easy at all. Reached the collapsed stall and threw himself down beside the child. She looked up at him with those huge silver eyes, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. He could see every detail of her small face, the fear, the confusion, the tiny spark of hope. "I've got you," he said, though he knew she probably did not understand his words. "I've got you, hold on." He grabbed the wooden beam that was pinning her down and pulled with all his strength. It was heavy, heavier than it looked. His injured shoulder screamed in protest, but he did not stop. He pulled and pulled until the beam shifted just enough for the girl to wiggle free. She crawled out and immediately wrapped her thin arms around his neck. She was shaking so hard he could feel it through his entire body. She was making small sounds, not words, just sounds of fear and relief all mixed together. "Okay," whispered, holding her tight. "Okay, we need to move, we need to." The energy bolt hit him in the shoulder. It was like being stabbed with a hot knife. The pain was instant and overwhelming, spun around from the force of the impact, nearly dropping the child. He could smell his own flesh burning. He could feel blood, or something worse, running down his arm. But he did not let go of the girl. He held her even and started to run. His vision was going blurry at the edges. His legs felt like they were made of water, But he kept running because stopping meant dying, and dying meant the child would die too. He could not let that happen. He would not let that happen. Behind him, the third raider took careful aim at his back. It was an easy shot. The human was wounded, slow, carrying extra weight. One more bolt and it would all be over. The raider squeezed the trigger. And then his head exploded. Heard the shot, a different sound from the raider's weapons, deeper and more powerful. He turned, still running, and saw shapes moving through the smoke and fire. But these were not like the civilians he had seen earlier. These wore armor of their own, dark blue and silver, and they carried weapons that hummed with deadly energy. The defense force had arrived. The remaining raider tried to run, but he did not get far. 2 more shots brought him down. Then 3 defense soldiers were surrounding, their strange faces looking at him with expressions he could not read. "Human," one of them said in accented standard, "you are injured, give us the child." Wanted to argue. He wanted to keep holding the girl to make sure she was safe. But his body had other plans. His legs gave out and he fell to his knees. The child was taken from his arms, gently, carefully, and he could hear her crying out, reaching back toward him. "It's okay," he tried to say. "She's okay, she's safe now, she's—" The world went dark. When woke up, the first thing he felt was pain. It was a dull, distant kind of pain, like his body had been wrapped in cotton and the hurt was trying to get through. He was lying on something soft. There was a strange smell in the air, sweet and clean, like the flowers he had smelled when he first stepped out of the crashed ship. He opened his eyes and saw white. A white ceiling, white walls, white light. For a moment he thought he might be dead. Then he tried to move and the pain got sharper, and he knew that dead people probably did not hurt this much. "Do not move," a voice said. "Your body is still healing." Turned his head slowly, carefully, and saw a sitting beside his bed. She was female, he thought, though it was hard to tell with their species. Her silver skin was smooth and unmarked, and her large eyes were fixed on him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "Where am I?" he asked. His voice came out rough and weak. "You are in our medical center," they said. "You have been unconscious for 2 days. Your wound was very serious. We almost lost you." 2 days, try to process this. 2 days of nothing, of darkness, of being somewhere between life and death. "My crew," he said, "the ship, are they?" "Your people are safe," they said. "Your captain has been asking about you. She will be relieved to know you are awake." Let out a breath he did not know he was holding. Then another thought came to him, sharp and urgent. "The girl, the child, is she?" This expression changed. It was subtle. Her species did not show emotion the way humans did, but saw something shift in her eyes, something warm. "She is here," they said. "She has been here every day waiting for you to wake up. Her name is Lyra. She is my daughter." Before could respond, a door opened somewhere behind him, and he heard small footsteps running across the floor. Then a weight landed on his bed, and he found himself looking into those same huge silver eyes he remembered from the marketplace. The girl Lyra was smiling. It was a strange expression on a face, but unmistakable. She reached out and put her small hand on his cheek, her skin cool against his. She said something in her own language. Did not understand the words, but he understood the feeling behind them. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." "She has not stopped talking about you," Lyra's mother said. "She calls you the Fire Man because you came through the fire to save her." Felt his eyes getting wet. He blinked hard, trying to keep control, but it was no use. He had almost died. He had actually died, maybe, for a little while. And now this small alien child was looking at him like he was the greatest hero in the universe. "I just did what anyone would do," he said. The mother made a sound, something like a laugh, but sadder. "No," she said. "That is not true. Many people ran past my daughter. Many people could have helped her, but only you did." She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at something could not see. "I am called," she said. I am of the old families, what you would call nobility. My daughter is descended from the first speakers, the founders of our civilization. If she had died, it would have been a tragedy for our entire people." She turned back to face him, and now could see tears on her silver cheeks, actual tears, just like a human would cry. "But that is not why I am grateful," she said. "I am grateful because she is my child, my only child, and you saved her. A stranger from a species we barely know saved my daughter's life." She crossed the room and took his hand in both of hers. Her grip was strong and warm. "I do not know how to repay such a debt," she said, "but I will find a way. I swear it on everything I am." Did not know what to say. He looked at Lyra, who was still sitting on his bed, still smiling at him with those big silver eyes. He looked at, who was holding his hand like she never wanted to let go. And he thought about how strange life was. How one moment you could be falling out of the sky, and the next moment you could be lying in an alien hospital, holding hands with an alien mother, while an alien child smiled at you like you had hung the stars. He had not planned to be a hero. He had just seen a scared child and done what felt right. But sometimes he was learning that was enough. The days that followed were strange and dreamlike. Spent most of his time in the medical center, letting the doctors work their magic on his wounded shoulder. Their medicine was different from human medicine. They used light and sound and strange glowing liquids that seemed to heal from the inside out. Within 3 days, his shoulder was almost back to normal. Within 5 days, the doctors said he was free to go. But did not go anywhere, because something strange was happening and he did not understand it. It started with visitors. On the first day after he woke up and Lyra came to see him. That made sense. He had saved Lyra's life, and her mother wanted to thank him. But on the second day, others started appearing. Strangers he had never met who stood at the door of his room and simply looked at him with those large, glowing eyes. At first, thought they were curious about humans. His species was new to this part of the galaxy, after all. Maybe they just wanted to see what a human looked like up close. But then they started bringing gifts. Small things at first, flowers from their gardens, food from their kitchens, pretty stones that glowed in the dark. They would place these offerings at the foot of his bed, bow their heads, and leave without saying a word. "What is happening?" asked on the third day, as yet another group filed out of his room. "Why are they doing this?" Was sitting in her usual spot beside his bed. Lyra was curled up next to, fast asleep, her small hand resting on his arm. The child had barely left his side since he woke up. "They are paying respect," said. "Word of what you did has spread across the settlement. Then it spread to the neighboring settlements. Then it spread to the capital." She paused and saw something complicated in her eyes. "You must understand something about our people," she continued. "We have known of humans for only a short time. We have heard stories, some good, some bad. We knew you were strong. We knew you could fight, but we did not know if you were good." Frowned. "Good." "Good," repeated. "Kind, selfless, willing to sacrifice for others." She reached out and touched his hand. "You showed us that humans can be these things. You showed us by almost dying for a child who was not your own from a species you barely knew." She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the purple sky. "In our culture, such an act is called a soul gift. It is the highest form of honor one being can give to another, and you gave it to my daughter, to all of us, without asking for anything in return." Shook his head. "I didn't do it for honor. I just saw a scared kid and wanted to help." Turned back to him, and there was something like wonder in her expression. "Yes," she said softly, "that is exactly the point." On the fourth day, Captain came to visit. She looked tired but healthy, her arm in a simple sling from an injury she had gotten during the crash. She sat down in the chair that usually occupied and studied with careful eyes. "How are you feeling, Lieutenant?" "Better, Captain. The doctors here are incredible." Nodded slowly. "Do you know what you've done?" felt a knot forming in his stomach. He had been so focused on recovering that he had not thought about the bigger picture, about the mission, about the diplomatic consequences of his actions. I interfered in a local conflict, he said. I violated protocol. I put myself in danger and— You saved a child's life, interrupted. A child who, as it turns out, is extremely important to their society. A child whose mother is one of the most influential figures on this planet. She leaned forward, her expression serious. The government has been in contact with Earth. They want to talk, not just about trade or territory or any of the things we came here to discuss. They want to talk about a full alliance, a permanent partnership between our peoples. Stared at her, because I saved one child. Because you showed them who we are, said, or at least who we can be. They've been watching us for months, trying to figure out if humans could be trusted, trying to figure out if we were worth taking a risk on. She smiled, but there was something serious underneath it. One act of kindness told them more than 100 diplomatic meetings ever could. That night lay awake in his bed, thinking about what the captain had said. Outside his window, the sky of Prime glowed with soft colors, purples and greens and blues that shifted and changed like a slow-motion rainbow. It was beautiful in a way that made his chest ache. He thought about Earth, about his home in a small city called where his parents still lived, about his younger sister who was studying to be a doctor, about all the people he had left behind when he joined the Space Corps and flew off into the stars. He had not thought about any of them when he ran toward that burning marketplace. He had not thought about anything except the crying child and the need to help her. Was that what made humans special? Was that what they saw in him? He did not know. He was not a philosopher or a poet. He was just a soldier who had done what felt right in the moment. But lying there in that alien hospital, looking up at that alien sky, began to understand something important. The universe was vast and full of wonders, but it was also cold and dangerous. Species rose and fell. Civilizations bloomed and withered. In such a universe, kindness was not weakness. It was strength. It was the thing that could bridge the gap between strangers and turn enemies into friends. He had not saved Lyra because he wanted to be a hero. He had saved her because she was scared and alone and needed help. But maybe that was what being a hero really meant. The next morning came to him with news. The High Council wishes to see you, she said. They are gathering in the capital. All 7 voices will be there. Felt his stomach drop. The 7 voices were the supreme leaders of civilization. He knew this from the briefings he had received before the mission. They were ancient and wise and held absolute power over their people. A summons from them was not something to be taken lightly. What do they want? He asked. Smiled a real smile, warm and genuine. They want to thank you, she said, in person, in front of our entire people. Lyra, who had been playing quietly in the corner, looked up at this. She ran over to and climbed onto his bed, wrapping her arms around him. You will be famous, she said in her small voice. Her standard was getting better every day. Everyone will know your name. Hugged her back, feeling the warmth of her small body against his. I don't want to be famous, he said. I just want everyone to be safe. Lyra pulled back and looked at him with those huge silver eyes. That is why you will be famous, she said, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. And despite everything, the fear, the uncertainty, the weight of what was to come, laughed. Maybe the little girl was right. Maybe the universe was simpler than he thought. Maybe kindness really was its own reward. He would find out soon enough. The capital city of Prime was called, and it was the most beautiful place had ever seen. The buildings were made of living crystal that grew from the ground like trees, their surfaces catching the light and throwing it back in 1,000 different colors. Rivers of clear water ran through the streets, and everywhere he looked, there were gardens filled with flowers that glowed softly in the shade. The transport that carried him glided silently through the air, giving him a perfect view of the city below. Thousands have walked the crystal streets, going about their daily lives. Some of them looked up as the transport passed, pointing and talking among themselves. "They know you are coming," said from the seat beside him. "The entire city knows." Shifted uncomfortably. He was wearing his dress uniform, the formal clothes of the Space Corps, cleaned and pressed by the staff at the medical center. It felt strange to be wearing it after so many days in hospital clothes. It felt even stranger to be flying toward a meeting with the most powerful beings on the planet. "What should I expect?" he asked. Considered the question. The Grand Chamber is a sacred place. It is where all important decisions are made. The 7 voices will be seated on the high platform and you will stand below them. She paused. "Do not be afraid. They do not wish to judge you. They wish to honor you." "That's what I'm afraid of," muttered. Lyra, who was sitting on his other side, giggled at this. She had insisted on coming to the ceremony, and her mother had not had the heart to refuse. The little girl was wearing a beautiful dress made of material that shimmered like starlight, and her silver hair was arranged in complicated braids. "You are funny," she said. "Why are you afraid of being honored?" Looked at her and tried to find the words to explain. How could he tell her that he did not feel like a hero? How could he explain that he had just done what anyone would do, what any decent person should do? The attention, the gratitude, the weight of expectation, it all felt like too much. But looking at Lyra's innocent face, he found he could not say any of this. "I'm not afraid," he said instead, "just nervous." Lyra nodded seriously. "I get nervous too sometimes, but Mother says being nervous is okay. It means you care about doing things right." Out of the mouths of children, thought. He smiled and ruffled her silver hair. "Your mother is very wise." The transport landed in a courtyard outside the Grand Chamber. As stepped out, he was immediately surrounded by officials in ceremonial robes. They bowed to him, deep, respectful bows that made him want to disappear into the ground. "This way, honored guest," one of them said. "The 7 voices await." They led him through corridors of crystal and light, past murals that told the history of the people in images he could not quite understand. The air was filled with a soft humming sound, music, he realized, though unlike any music he had ever heard. It seemed to come from the walls themselves. Finally, they reached a set of massive doors, taller than any doors had ever seen. They were made of the same living crystal as the rest of the building, but these crystals were darker, deeper, ancient in a way he could feel in his bones. The Grand Chamber whispered, "Are you ready?" Took a deep breath. "No, but let's go anyway." The doors opened and walked into legend. The Grand Chamber was enormous, a vast dome of crystal that seemed to contain an entire sky within its walls. Light poured in from every direction, creating patterns that shifted and danced like living things. And everywhere, filling every seat, standing in every aisle, were thousands of them, more than had ever seen in his life. They all turned to look at him as he entered. The silence was absolute. Not a whisper, not a rustle, not a single sound. Just thousands of silver faces and glowing eyes, all fixed on the lone human walking down the central aisle. His legs felt like they were made of lead, but he kept walking. Captain was waiting for him near the front, along with the surviving crew of the Horizon's Edge. She gave him a small nod as he passed, encouragement, support, pride. He drew strength from it and kept moving. At the far end of the chamber, raised on a platform that seemed to float in midair, sat the 7 voices. They were old, could tell this even from a distance. Their silver skin had faded to pale white, and their bodies were thin and fragile-looking. But their eyes burned with an intelligence that made feel like a child standing before ancient teachers. The eldest of them rose to speak. His voice was soft, but it carried through the entire chamber as if amplified by the crystal walls. "We gather today to recognize an act of extraordinary courage and kindness. an act that has shown us the true nature of a species we once viewed with caution and uncertainty. He paused, letting his words settle over the crowd. 12 days ago, our settlement was attacked by raiders. These criminals killed 7 of our people and would have killed many more. Among those in danger was Lyra of the line, a child descended from the first speakers themselves. A murmur ran through the crowd. Saw looking at Lyra, who was standing beside her mother near the front of the chamber. The little girl stood tall and proud, not showing any fear. In the chaos of that terrible day, a human, a stranger to our world, a member of a species we had only recently met, saw this child in danger. He could have hidden. He could have run. He could have saved himself and left her to her fate. The elderly voice fixed his glowing eyes on. He did none of these things. Instead, he ran toward the danger. He fought against enemies who outmatched him in every way. He shielded the child with his own body, taking a wound that should have killed him. And when our defenders finally arrived, they found him collapsed over her, still protecting her, even in death. The chamber was completely silent now, could feel the weight of every gaze upon him. Our physicians brought him back from the edge of the void. They healed his wounds, but they could not explain his actions. They could not understand why a stranger would give his life for a child not his own. The voice stepped down from the platform and began walking toward. Despite his age, his movements were graceful and sure. So we asked him. When he woke, when he could speak again, we asked him why he did what he did. The voice stopped directly in front of. Up close, his eyes were like stars, deep and ancient and full of light. Do you know what he said? The voice turned to address the crowd, but his words seemed meant for everyone and no one. He said because she was scared, and she was alone, that's enough. Another murmur, louder this time, saw turning to each other, talking in low voices, their expressions filled with something he could not quite name. For 200 years I have led our people, the voice continued. In that time I have seen many things. I have seen courage and cowardice, kindness and cruelty, wisdom and folly, but I have rarely seen what I saw in this human's actions. He turned back to and placed a thin, cool hand on his shoulder. I have rarely seen pure goodness. The voice raised his other hand, and the chamber fell silent once more. Lieutenant Park of Earth, in the name of the 7 voices, in the sight of all, I give you a new name. A name that has not been given to an outsider in over 1,000 years. Felt his heart pounding in his chest. From this day forward, you are kin beyond stars. You are not alien to us. You are family. And then, as one, every in the chamber began to sing. The singing filled the grand chamber like water filling a glass. It was unlike any sound had ever heard. Thousands of voices joining together in perfect harmony, creating notes that seemed to vibrate in his very bones. The crystal walls caught the sound in it, sending it echoing through the vast space until it felt like the entire building was singing along. Stood frozen, unable to move, barely able to breathe. Tears were running down his face, though he did not remember starting to cry. The music was doing something to him, reaching into places he kept hidden, touching wounds he had carried for years, healing hurts he had forgotten he had. Beside him, Captain was crying too. So was Han, and every other human in the chamber. Even the had tears on their silver cheeks, tears that glittered like diamonds in the shifting light. The song lasted for what felt like hours, though it was probably only minutes. When it finally faded, the silence that followed was not empty but full, full of meaning, full of promise, full of something new being born. The eldest voice, still did not know his name, raised his hand once more. But we do not honor only this man, he said. We honor what he represents, we honor his people, we honor humanity. He turned to face the other 6 voices, who still sat on the high platform. One by one, they rose and descended to stand beside their elder. 7 ancient beings, the leaders of an entire civilization, standing in a line before a single human soldier. We have watched humanity from afar, the eldest voice continued. We have heard of your wars, your divisions, your capacity for destruction. We wondered if you were worth knowing. We wondered if you could be trusted. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. We know now. We know because of what this man did. We know because when faced with a choice between safety and sacrifice, he chose sacrifice. We know because he saw a scared child, not his child, not his species' child, and he decided that her life was worth his own. Another voice stepped forward. She was younger than the eldest, though still ancient by human standards. Her voice was stronger, more powerful, filled with fierce conviction. In our language there is a word. It means one who gives without asking. It is the highest praise we can offer. It is reserved for those who show true selflessness, true goodness, true love for others. She looked at, and he saw something like love in her glowing eyes. Park is, and if one human can be, then perhaps all humans carry this potential within them. Perhaps your species is not defined by your wars and your conflicts, but by your capacity for kindness. A third voice spoke, his words slow and deliberate. We have been alone for a long time. We have watched other species rise and fall. We have seen empires crumble and worlds burn. We have protected ourselves by keeping our distance, by trusting no one outside our own kind. He walked forward until he was standing directly in front of. His ancient hand reached out and rested on the human's heart. But loneliness is not safety. Isolation is not strength. We understand this now. You have taught us this, human. You have taught us that reaching out, even when it is dangerous, is worth the risk. The eldest voice spoke again, and now his words carried the weight of law. Let it be known across all worlds, humanity has proven itself too. From this day forward, the people swear eternal friendship to Earth and her children. Your enemies are our enemies. Your struggles are our struggles. We will stand beside you until the stars grow cold. The crowd erupted in sound, not singing this time, but something else. A roar of approval, of joy, of celebration. Thousands of raising their voices in agreement, stamping their feet, clapping their hands in a rhythm that shook the crystal floor. Felt Captain grab his arm. He turned to look at her and saw tears still streaming down her face, but she was smiling, a huge, incredulous smile. "Do you understand what just happened?" she shouted over the noise. "We came here hopping for a basic trade agreement. You just got humanity a permanent ally. One of the most advanced civilizations in this sector just swore eternal friendship to Earth." Opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, something hit him at knee level. He looked down and saw Lyra, who had pushed through the crowd to reach him. She wrapped her arms around his legs and looked up at him with those huge silver eyes, now bright with happiness. "I told you," she said. "I told you everyone would know your name." Knelt down so he was at her level. He put his hands on her small shoulders and looked into her face. This child he had known for barely 2 weeks, this child he had almost died to save. "You know what?" he said. "I don't care about my name, I don't care about being famous. I'm just glad you're okay." Lyra tilted her head, considering this. Then she leaned forward and pressed her forehead against his, a gesture of deep affection. He had learned. "You are strange," she said, "but I like you." Laughed. It was a real laugh, full and free, bubbling up from somewhere deep inside him. All the tension, all the fear, all the weight of the past weeks, it all came out in that laugh. "I like you too, kid," he said. "I like you too." The celebration went on for hours. There was food and music and dancing, dancing with humans, humans trying to learn songs, everyone laughing and talking and sharing stories. Found himself at the center of it all, surrounded by people who wanted to shake his hand, to thank him, to simply stand near him. At some point, the eldest voice found him standing alone on a balcony, looking out at the glowing city below. "You seem troubled," the voice said, coming to stand beside him. "This should be a happy day for you." Was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I keep thinking about the people who didn't get saved, the 7 who died in the attack. I couldn't save them." The voice nodded slowly. "Grief for those we could not help is the burden of those who try to help. It is a heavy weight." "How do you carry it?" The voice smiled, a gentle, knowing smile. "By remembering that we cannot save everyone. We can only do what we can when we can, where we can. You saved one child, one life. And because of that one life, 2 civilizations have become friends. Millions of beings on both sides will benefit from what you did." He put his hand on shoulder. "Do not measure your worth by what you could not do. Measure it by what you did do. You saw a scared child and you ran toward her. That is enough. That has always been enough." Looked out at the glowing city, at the crystal spires reaching toward the stars, at the alien sky that had become somehow familiar. "I never wanted to be a hero," he said quietly. "No one who becomes a true hero ever does," the voice replied. "That is what makes them heroes." Far below, could see Lyra playing with other children, her silver hair catching the light as she ran and laughed. He thought about her scared face in that burning marketplace. He thought about the choice he had made without thinking. He thought about all the ways his life had changed in the past 2 weeks. He had come to Prime as a simple soldier, part of a diplomatic mission that was supposed to be quiet and uneventful. He was leaving as kin beyond stars, a symbol of everything humanity could be. It was strange. It was overwhelming. It was too much and not enough all at the same time. But looking at Lyra, watching her play without fear, knowing that she was alive and happy and safe, realized that he would do it all again. Every moment of terror, every flash of pain, every second of that desperate run through fire and chaos. Because some things were worth dying for. And some things, some small, precious, irreplaceable things were worth living for. He smiled, wiped the tears from his eyes, and went back to join the celebration. The stars were waiting, and humanity had just taken its first real step toward joining them.